My next guest is a featherweight contender, and he trains out of his mom's basement. From one mom's basement to another, we had to make this happen. He's the official fighter of Mom's Basement MMA, Connor the Controller Matthews. Connor, welcome, man. Good to see you in your mom's basement.
Nice to see you, man. Yeah, this is Mom's Basement. We've made a lot of improvements. We got a full-on cage down here in the basement. More mat space now. I have a workout area over there, our waiting area. So we've made a lot of improvements, and it's been awesome down here. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, Connor. I'm doing great, and I'm looking forward to your fight on October 10th of next month when you'll be back on the Contender Series. But before we get into all that, I want to just talk about what's going on in your basement. I know you have a lot of fighters that are coming through. I know that you train. I know that you coach some guys. Can you tell me a little bit what's life been like, and who are some of your guys that are getting ready to go out there?
We got a lot of good guys down here right now. Right now, up and comer, Joe Poirier. He's on a tear right now. I think he's 3-0. He's fought like 2 weeks ago. He had finished the guy in the first round with a knockout. He has another fight coming up this weekend. He's already booked for another fight after that. He's been really active, very busy. We call him the world's biggest flyweight. He's 125 pounds, and man, he's definitely one of these kids that's got it. He puts on great performances. He's been finishing guys. He just finished a black belt, so really excited to see what he's going to be doing in the next couple of years. Andrew Valdina is another up and coming pro in South Coast Mass. So he right now, I believe he's 3 or 4-0 as well. I think he's 4-0 actually, and he's taking a little bit of time. He just took some damage in his last fight, even though he secured the victory, but he took some damage, so we were letting him heal up a little bit. But he's in the mix. Jaden Curley, he just left. I just had pads. He's got to fight this weekend. So it's like the thing is, the Mom's Basement is like really turning into like a real fight gym. I got actually some really good guys that are coming through here. We got a lot of guys, like I said, next to Rhode Island. So we got wrestlers from Johnson and Wales. A lot of those guys have been coming up and wrestling on the weekends. I mean, I'm just super grateful. What I try to do is, I train with the England Cartel. That's my head coach is Tyson Chartier. So I'm basically disseminating the information that I learn up there, and it gives me another opportunity to learn it again by teaching it to guys on the South Coast. So it's kind of like I'm building that gap, and it's a good way for me to go home. So I'm up there 4 days a week, and it's an hour and 45 minutes from where I live. So this is the best way I can get reps on the things that we're working on in my house.
On fight day, when you're going in and you're cornering these guys, like how nerve-wracking is that for you? Because I always ask that question for active fighters, and I usually hear the same answer every time, and it's I'm more nervous for their fights than my own.
Yeah, man, you just got no control on what I wouldn't say I'm more nervous. I think because people say that, but I'm definitely not. I'm definitely more nervous for my own fights. There's so much riding on the line for your own fight. I mean, I care about my guys. I'm excited for my guys to win. Like, you know what I mean? I want them. So, but for amateurs, I'm not too nervous because I think it's just for that scene. Like, yes, I want to make sure my guys are as prepared as possible for safety. Like, that's my thing as a coach is like, I'm putting you into a fucking fight. I need to make sure that I like trust you to be in that fight and protect yourself and be good. That's like the number one thing. And then, but for the professionals, yeah, that's a little bit because, there's a lot riding. A lot of these guys dedicate their entire lives to this thing. People, MMA is not a lot of money in it. There's not a lot of whatever, you know what I mean? So they're dedicating their lives for something. So you really want to push for these guys to win, and it's a little bit more nerve wracking, but yeah. But at the same time, when you're getting in the fight, you get some crazy butterflies too. You know what I mean?
Well, I did want to ask you about the biggest fight that's happening in Massachusetts later on this week. Joe Giannetti going up against Michael Dufour. This is like a huge fight for the lightweight title for Cage Titans. And I'm not going to ask you who you think's going to win because I already know what you have to say. I understand. But I wanted to just ask you this matchup. It's a really interesting one. Do you have any like sort of just general thoughts for both of these high level guys that are coming in?
I really don't know too much about that guy, the Canadian kid. I really don't know too much about him. I know a lot about JoJo. I've seen JoJo, watching JoJo fight for years. And the thing with I always realize about JoJo, he's a gamer, man, because he's like he's been there, he's done that, he's like Cage Science is his home. So anytime anytime you ever doubt him, he always seems like to rise to the occasion. He's done this. He's got that real fight experience, which is a part of like. There's so many good guys. I know so many guys that are like great in the gym, and they know, you know what I mean. They're awesome, but they just fall apart underneath the lights. You know what I mean? They don't rise to the occasion. And I feel like JoJo is one of those guys that always rises to the occasion. He always gets it done. So I'm really excited to see what he does in there. He looks prepared. I saw him this week, hitting pads. He's cracking some pads. So he looks like he's ready to go.
I was upset that he wasn't on the Boston card from a little while back. I felt like that was a missed opportunity to feature some Boston guys, and it just never really happened. But hopefully things work out for him, and hopefully, he gets an opportunity to compete at that next stage. I also would say the exact same thing about his opponent. He's a very high level guy. Hey, listen, both of these guys don't belong on the regional scene. I hope they both move up. Connor, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about Combat Zone 79. That was when we last left off. You were going up, and I told you about this guy. I was like, Andrew, I was like, this guy's a tough dude. This is not an easy fight for you. Like, this is a guy that's going to bring it, and you're going to need to be ready. And I'm not telling you anything you didn't already know. You seem to have the same opinion of him. Well, talk to me through the buildup about that fight. That was like a huge fight in your area.
It was a big fight, and it was for me it was a really good camp though. That was like that was like me for my chance to test everything I kind of been working on with the New England Cartel, because before that, up to that point, I was always training out of Lausanne's and I had different corner or different team. And then after that, I started training with the New England Cartel. So, I mean, for me, it was like, all right, let's see what the shit that I've been working on. Let's see how I'm going to go out there and how it's going to really help me if I'm a different fighter than I was. And I really was, man. Like I the best I've ever felt for an entire camp. It was the best camp until now, but up until then, that was the best camp I ever had. I felt calm, which I've never felt like that before, that calm before going into the ring. And I had a good game plan, and, it was my best performance, I would say. It was just really good. I had a lot of respect for Andrew Cruz is no slouch, man. He fought a couple guys that were fought in the UFC. He was a tough wrestler. I was definitely like, all right, shit, this is another wrestler. You know what I mean? I just had that Francis Marshall fight. So, I still know that went. I was a little bit worried, and I was like, went in there and I performed. Man, I felt great. Man, that was an awesome fight.
For Cruz, now that the fight's over and I'm comfortable asking the question, what was the game plan for Cruz?
So for Cruz, we knew he's a wrestler. So obviously, I'm more of a striker. So like that's where I wanted to keep the fight. So our plan was to keep our distance, use our hands, and we noticed that he was dipping his head off to the right a lot. So I noticed that. So my game plan was to set up a kick going to, which I got off and I hurt my foot on it when I hit him. So I kicked him in the head. I blew out his eardrum actually with that one kick. I slipped. I fell down. I don't know if you remember the fight, but I slipped and I fell down. And then I got back up. That's when I hurt my foot. So then I just finished him. Then I just went back to using my hands. I knew I had his timing. I knew I had his position and everything. Went to hands. He ended up shooting in on me, desperately. I was drilling, and our other plan was to drill him with front kicks. The way he was standing very square. I have a good front kick. So I was like, I'm just going to nail that. Those really hurt the body. And he even told me, he's like, man, like I ate a couple of those front kicks. I mean, I just wanted to close the distance to stop the front kicks. And once he did that, his head shot low, and I took his back. I was able to block his arm, take his back, got the choke. So it was good. It was a good fight. It was, you know what I mean? He came out, he gave me some, something to work out. It wasn't just like I smoked him in the first round, but he came out, he pressured me. He was clinching me. He shot a couple of takedowns. I had to defend. And then, the tides turned, and I started picking him apart and took him down, took his back.
For the past 2 months, I've been watching Fight Pass, and I've been seeing that clip over and over again of you and Dana talking after the fight.
Yeah.
The little I've heard about Dana White is like, when you're around him, like in his presence, like he is somebody that carries a presence with him, and you feel that when he like walks in the room. That's what I've heard from other fighters that I've talked to over the years. I was just kind of curious if you felt that as well. I know you've interacted with him before, especially being a New England guy, but it's a little bit different when it's after a fight of that magnitude.
Yeah. Oh, the first time I saw him really talk to him was actually before a Contender series. It was that episode 1 of season 6 where he brought, or episode 2, sorry, because he brought all the fighters into the back room. And that's when I really thought, I was like, I kind of really like this guy, because he never did this before. He brought all of us before the Contender series, brought us all into the back. And he's like, because he had a really bad week 1. So he wanted to let us know. He's like, hey, you just to remind you guys are out here to fucking prove yourself. Well, he gave us like a pep talk, like a locker room pep talk. before we went out and fight. And then, we went out there and I had a war. There's a lot of knockouts. So that's the first time I met him. And that really pumped me up. And that's when I realized, I was like, wow, Dana White's a cool motherfucker. Like just the way his attitude was. And then I talked to him briefly after my last fight with the Francis Marshall fight. He came in the back to talk to me, even though I lost. He came in the back and he talked to me. He's like, hey man, I just want to let you know, he's like, you're a fucking savage, blah, blah, blah. That was an awesome blah. So I got on that time. And then, but I was so concussed that felt like a dream, to be honest. And I think about it, I was rocked. So I remember that, but barely. Right. And then going into it for the last time, it was fucking awesome, man. Yeah, there's definitely like a cool vibe, man. That was a really big moment in my life. I was really cool to get brought in back there. I get to meet Matt Serra, Dean Thomas. It was just like a dream come true, man. Like, I'm so happy that I went out there and performed the way I did, because I think they're really going out there to see Yuri. Seems like it on the show, you know what I mean? A couple other guys they had in mind, but I was able to, rise to the occasion and really, take the show.
Well, you went out there and you did your job, and it was right then and there that he told you. He didn't pull any punches. He told you, he's like, I like what I saw. I want to bring you back on Contender. And, the result is there, right? Like you went out there and you did your part of it, but in the back of your mind, it's like, is that enough? You just don't really know until, either your manager calls you or, you read something online. That's how most people found out. But like he told you, and you had to have been like really like in that moment in, especially considering, over the past year or so, just thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really supposed to tell people too, I don't think, because they didn't want to. I knew all this time, and they're like, because I had that film of me getting, like, I had that video, but I couldn't release it for the longest fucking time because they had to drop the episode on YouTube. So yeah, it was but I mean, it was nice to know, but I started to freak out too because I was like, all right, Contender Series start in week 1. So I'm thinking in my head this whole time, like, that's when I'm going to start fighting. You know what I mean? So since my last fight on Combat Zone, I've been like, all right, so I got to start planning. Then like Contender Series started late this year. So I was like, oh, that's weird. So then I was like, week 1 came out, wasn't on it. Week 2 came out, wasn't on it. Week 3, I'm not on to week 10. So then I'm like, did they just tell me I was going to fight on it and then not give me a Contender Series shot? Like, I was like, I was kind of starting to question. I was like, maybe they're not going to give me a shot. Like, I don't know what's going on. And then finally the episode dropped. I got a call, got my opponent. And yeah, man. So it's been awesome. It's been a great camp. And it's, all that hype behind it has been really cool. I really want to seal the deal and just get this contract now. After everything, you know what I mean? It's been it's been a trip since my last fight. You know what I mean? It sucks because like after I left my last fight, you know what I mean? It's a real low spot. Like you just worked your ass off to get to the Contender Series, and then you lose, and you're like, fuck. And then now it's like been another build up to getting myself back there. It's been awesome.
And that's actually something I wanted to hit on. Like for you, this is a very rare opportunity because we don't often see guys get another chance to come through the show coming off of a loss. Now you actually have an opportunity a little over a year since your last run with Contender. And I wanted to just pick your brain on this because there are a few guys that I've known over the years that are also going to be on that show. Torres Finney, I've known him since he was an amateur. He's going to actually be competing on the same night as you are. But for some of these other guys that are like going to be on this show for the very first time, do you have like any piece of advice that you'd give anybody, like somebody like Torres, for example, that's showing up maybe for the first time fighting on a huge stage like this?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a huge difference. For me, it's a change, and I don't know if it's all mental. Like you can bring it down to making it to like it's manageable as per person. But for me, it was like a very, very like fighting like having Dana White sit there for the first time, having Herb Dean put your Vaseline on, walking out there. It was just like, it was sensory overload. You know what I mean? It just didn't feel, almost like at the time, it didn't feel like it was real. So I would say, just be prepared to, be really put out there. Like it's the big show. You know what I mean? It's everything like it's a little bit different than the local scene. So that's a lot to take in. I'm glad that I saw that. I got a rep in it. And so now I know what to expect. So I can mentally rehearse and prepare for all that scenario in my head. I think that's just what it is, man. I think it's just like anything. It's like the first time you do something, you know what I mean? It's you're just adjusting to it. And then the second time you can rehearse and prepare mentally before you do it. That will make you perform a little bit better. So you kind of just got to do it, man. There's nothing you can really do about that.
The other thing about Contender is you're not going to get an easy fight. Like you're going to have to earn your spot in the UFC, and it means getting a win off of a freaking savage, and that's who they have teed
Yeah.
up for you. An undefeated
Yeah.
guy. I'm gonna try to say his name, Yair Farais. I think that's how you say it. If I got it wrong, I apologize. But in any event, he has been very impressive. A lot of his fights
Yeah.
don't go the distance. He's either able to find finishes with the striking or find submissions even. What is your take
Yeah.
on this guy when you look at his tape and some of his old fights?
Another fucking killer, man. That's what it is. I mean, this is like the Contender Series is kind of turning into like the best from whatever countries bottlenecked into this, and then if you make it through that, you get into the UFC. So that's what it is, man. He's the best prospect out of Brazil, one of the best prospects out of Brazil, which is a fucking killer country to begin with. You know what I mean? So he's tall, he's big, he's got good striking, he's gonna be a big challenge. He's gonna be a challenge. But I think that's what's motivated me this entire camp to work as hard as I have is knowing what I'm prepared for. I mean, at the end of the day, the way I look at this, like I said, it is the UFC to me. Like call it the Contender Series, call it what you want, but I'm fighting in the cage in the UFC Apex in front of Herb Dean and Dana White. So it's the UFC. I'm maybe not getting paid as much, but I'm fighting that level of caliber of people, and that's what it is going to be after this, is fighting these high level guys. So I mean, that's the jump I'm ready to make, and I've been preparing for. So yeah, I got to respect his hands. I got to respect everything, but there's not too many guys you're going to meet in the UFC that you don't have to be, on your toes about. So I expect, he's going to be there. He's going to be a tough opponent. But he hasn't fought in this stage before, and I have, and he hasn't, he's fighting in Brazil, local shows, like, you know what I mean? He hasn't really been challenging anybody with that great of a record yet. So not to downplay what he's done and what he's accomplished, but he hasn't really fought anybody else like me yet. So I'm ready for this guy.
Do you feel like your cardio is a big advantage for you going into this fight? And do you feel like if you can drag this fight on longer, he's going to gas?
Yeah, my cardio is definitely an advantage. Being in special operations, like, man, we were cardio machines. I did so much running, and like that was part of. And it's not just cardio; it's carrying your weight. It's like I'm strong because I have a lifetime of just doing that. I went straight from playing competitive hockey, like high level hockey, to special operations to being a professional fighter. All I've done is cardio my whole life, and it helps me out. It's my huge advantage, my athletic ability. So he's big too. So I know, I mean, it's hard to carry all that weight for that long. So I think that's a huge advantage that I'm going to have over this guy.
For the people that are going to be watching you compete for the very maybe second time, I should say, right? Because you fought Francis Marshall. That was probably the introduction that most of the country has about you. But as you get ready to make this walk on October 10th, what's changed since the Marshall fight? Like, how have you evolved as a fighter, and what are people going to see on October 10th?
Biggest thing is I train out of the England Cartel now, so that's the biggest change I've had. So the way we train is completely different. So I used to train. There'd be, we'd have a couple professional fighters that I'd work with here and there. I'd spar with like maybe Calvin and Rob on the weekends. But during my day to day, I was training with casual MMA people, kind of, you know what I mean? Like people that are off the streets that are just, they're not trying to make a job at this. Maybe they're professional fighters, but this now like the room is just full of like guys like this is their job. It's Rob Font, Calvin Cater, Nick Fjord, Tom Pags, Brendan Marat, Chris Montino. You know what I mean? It's like every single guy. Like there's no rest. You know what I mean? It's every single guy I'm working with every single day is a high level guy. And then if I'm not working with high level guys, I'm back. I'm training guys in my gym. So it's just like I've evolved so much just from that. My wrestling is gone way better. I think we saw a big hole in my game with the Francis Marshall fight is I was trying to work off my back and use jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu doesn't work that great in MMA. Figured that out a little late, but yeah, I guess I'm gonna stick to the wrestling thing. So I wrestle a lot more. My striking has gotten way better. I still work with Jake Manini, who's our Muay Thai coach, but I got a new additional boxing striking coach, Pete Luciani. He works with all the good strikers right now from the South Coast Mass in this area. He works out of the basement. He's our coach, and he's really helped me out a ton, man. He's a crazy guy, but he's a savant, man. I swear to God, he's one of those crazy boxing coaches that he just gets it, and he's been a huge help. I mean, my striking has gotten so much better, and defensively too. Remember the Francis Marshall fight? I got touched up a lot. So we've been working a ton of defensive stuff. So I'm ready for this. I'm ready for this guy striking.
I wanted to ask you one final question, and it's kind of an interesting one, right? Because I think we always ask, especially me, especially my job, right? Because I always ask people like you, like, well, what's it going to take to fight in PFL, or what's it going to take to fight in the UFC? What's it going to take to get to that next level? But then the question kind of almost we need to evolve that question. It's kind of a shitty question. I think the better question is, what do you need to do to stay in a promotion like that? Because the UFC, right, that is a dog eat dog promotion, and if you aren't
Yeah.
delivering on the results, there's a line around the block of guys that are just chomping at the bit to take your spot. And there it's one of those things where I don't think enough people may think about that until it's kind of too late. But you seem to me like a pretty cerebral guy that's already thought about that question.
Yeah. So number one thing is you have to be able to compete and win at that level. I mean, that's point one right there. Second thing is you have to put asses in seats. So I mean, you have to be somebody that people want to watch. You know what I mean? If you don't have any type of personality, or you don't necessarily have to have a personality, but maybe you have a specific style that people like to watch, something about you that makes you non-forgettable. You know what I mean? You're not a boring fighter to watch. So I think that's the biggest thing is you got to create a personality that people want to watch, and either hate you or love you. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be, you don't have to, I'm not saying you have to be like Conor McGregor, but you have to be your own person that people want to see and fight and watch and perform and actually win fights. That's basically it, man. I think that there's a lot of guys, I mean, they let CM Punk into the UFC. So, you know what I mean? So that was a big thing. But for me is I want to be like a legitimate UFC fighter. I don't care about, like, I know the special operations thing is cool that I have as like a background. It's like, that's part of who I am. But like the other part of it is like, I want to be like a guy because I want to be a competitor. Like why do you want to watch Max Holloway? It's not because he's cool and he's from Hawaii and he can skateboard. It's because he goes out there and he does amazing striking and amazing style. You know what I mean? Like that's what I want to be. I want to be somebody that people see and like, I want to watch this guy fight because I like to see him fight.
Yeah, I that's a great answer. And I wanted to also kind of very briefly get your opinion when you look on that featherweight class for the UFC. What are your thoughts on just the weight class in general?
Yeah, I think there should be more weight classes. I know that's like a big thing. I really think it's crazy that they go from 155 to 170. I mean, that's a big gap right there. So many different people. I don't like the amount of cutting. Like I think I should fight at 155 personally, and I'm not a huge 45er. I mean, I'm not small, but I'm not a huge 45er. You know what I mean? Like I'm pretty average. A lot of these guys are 5'11". You know what I mean? Big guys. So it's like, I think that, I wish guys would fight more naturally at their weight, but I don't know how to do that without, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, they would have to be agreed upon weights and how much you can rehydrate and all that stuff. And that just adds a whole nother headache to it. There's not enough money in it for that stuff right now to figure that shit out, unless you're like Ryan Garcia, right? So,
Right.
yeah, I just think there definitely should have more weight classes. I think that would split up a little bit, and then, yeah, that's it, man. I mean, right now, even if there was more weight classes, I'm still gonna be fighting at 145 until they do something about the water cuts. You know what I mean? I've had fights where it sucks when you put all your hard work into a good fight camp and you feel amazing going into camp, but then something fucks up in your cut. You know what I mean? Like, I know guys like Rob and Calvin, like fights that people don't see. People see them out there and perform, but they don't know what the cut they went through and days they had problems and trouble and stuff like that. So it's just unfortunate. You know what I mean? I wish that people could, and it's dangerous, man. Like dehydrating yourself that much and then getting concussions. I mean, it's just like the worst thing you can possibly do. It
And
seems like the stupidest thing you can do. It is. So it's like, it sucks that like you try to do a safe spot. That's why I'm not willing. I think that I could actually go down to 135 if I physically could go to 135 and make 135 and compete, but I'm not willing to take that risk for the concussions and stuff and after the fight. So
There's only so much water on your brain that you can put on until you actually have to make that walk. I mean, you're talking about making a huge cut and then less than 24 hours later, put your mind on the line.
yeah,
That's crazy.
exactly. It is crazy. So
There's
yeah,
just so much water you can put on your brain. It's just like, would your chin hold up? Would you have the durability? Would you be like that more susceptible to injury? And the answer is, well, obviously, yeah, you're going to be a lot more susceptible to injury. And that's why I asked that question, because I do agree with you. I think that there definitely needs to be more weight classes. And I
yeah,
hope that, there can at least be a 160-pound division and maybe encourage guys that are making that cut down to 45. Maybe it gives them an opportunity to compete at lightweight one day, if assuming there was a 60, a class in the 60s.
yeah. I totally agree. Yeah, it's just it's crazy how big these 155ers are too, man. Like the jump between 145 and 155 is insane. There's not too many 55ers underneath 6 feet. You know what I mean? They're all above 6 feet. They're all walking around 185. You know what I mean? That's their natural weight. So that's insane.
When I met Aljo Sterling at a CFFC fight, I would say he was probably 180 pounds. He's freaking huge. I could not believe it. Now,
Yeah,
granted, he's like double fisting beers and shit, but when
yeah.
when I saw him, but he's still a big dude.
Oh yeah, they're huge. Even Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley is what is he? 5'11". He's 135. He walks around 162, 160. That's my size right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's, you know what I mean. That's big. So yeah,
That's
I mean, it is what it is, man. It's something that I hope changes, but I mean, there's got to be a reason. I mean, let's be honest. The whole judging commissions is a thing of the past that's trying to operate something a new sport that just hasn't caught up to the times, and just like who are these people judging martial arts when it's like it's became a totally new sport than what they originally. I mean, it's not boxing, and we go by a boxing scorecard. It just doesn't make any sense. There's just a lot of it's just a lot of stuff that needs to get updated, but like for whatever reason, it's not happening yet. It will, I think, eventually.
I think we're another decade or two away from seeing wholesale changes that the sport needs, but we definitely will get there. I'm very optimistic for that. Connor, before I let you go, I know that you have a lot of people that work with you to give you the opportunities that you have. So if there's anyone that you want to shout out or thank before I let you go, let's do it.
Yeah. So first of all, I'd like to thank my coaches. We have Jake Manini, my Muay Thai coach, Pete Luciani, my MMA striking coach, Tyson Chartier, who's Tyson is my MMA coach overall, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, all that. Really been a great camp for those guys. So thank you to those guys. And again, New England Cartel. First, their foundation is a combat control association that, they help out veterans like me who are chasing their dream, or they're helping out veterans who are struggling, going through something that's hard. So yeah, it's combat controller. So if you guys go on there, I have shirts. Go on there, buy a controller MMA shirt. Money goes to them so they can help out other controllers who are struggling, going through PTSD or whatever. You know what I mean? Maybe a family member lost somebody. We're just there to help out the guys. So if you guys want to go and support them or support me, go to them and buy a shirt. Firsttheirfoundation.org is the website. That's the name of the thing. Other than that, and I just want to say thank you real quick, Mom's Basement. I love that. The official fighter out of Mom's Basement. It's been great, man. I kind of stole just to let everybody. I kind of I didn't mean to steal it. We just started all the guys just started calling it Mom's Basement, and then there was a Mom's Basement podcast, and it kind of just we just stuck. I was gonna change it to something else, but then they're like, no, Mom's Basement. I like they calling it Mom's Basement, so that's the gym now. It's Mom's Basement, but we have the Mom's Basement podcast and the Mom's Basement gym. Two different things, but we work together.
Hey, we work together, and there's plenty of Mom's Basement to share. Connor, I appreciate your time. I wish you the best of skill, and I look forward to seeing you in the UFC over a very, very long term, my friend.
Thank you very much, man. I really appreciate that.